This is the Kissmobile.
And this is the AACA Museum, which is the Antique Automobile Club of America Museum. It's part of the Smithsonian, or it's a member of the Smithsonian. It's got tons and tons of antique automobiles, buses, cars, what Joel's dreams are made of.
Actually, this is one of the only automobile museums that has buses in it. And it used to be a dedicated bus museum and a separate car museum. Now they've combined. Let's go check out some buses and I guess other cars, whatever. Yeah. Before we go in, check out this cool Chevy bus. You don't see old Chevrolet buses like this anymore. And if you do, and they're in a farm somewhere, they're probably rusted as can be. And look at that stop indicator up there, little lamps. Anybody remember riding in one of those at all? I feel like these old buses had style back then. Now this guy's an interesting specimen, an old flexible bus. And at this, look at how comfy these seats look. Don't those look like? I mean, I wouldn't mind spending an hour or so in those, right? It's old flexible though.
This is a 1946 flexible Betsy II. These were extremely popular small intercity coaches. They were only manufactured from 1937 to 1942 and then again in 1944 to 1950. The Betsy I was the first version and the Betsy II was the second period of time where it was released.
This would be one hell of a conversion. What a beauty this is. They're not super tall either. Check out the Kissmobile. It's all fiberglass constructed and they're kind of for like parade floats. Apparently there are like 5 of these that exist. They have one of them. Oh man, look at that paint job. What a beauty. A 1932 Ford. So apparently it was purchased in 2000 and restored. It's got a leather top on it. Oh my goodness.
So this was actually purchased by the owner's brother in 2000 and he bought it as just body panels and some wood structure without a drivetrain. And then they took 25 years to renovate it.
25 years. Looks like a labor of love to me. Look at that. And what a beauty that is. Another example of something far too nice for us to own. Ooh.
They have a whole area of this museum dedicated to Saabs. But particularly, I love this 1978 Saab 99 Turbo, which has a really funny shape. I love like the shape of these. A lot of people think they're really ugly, including Joel, but I think they're really awesome looking. I would drive this in a heartbeat and I really love them in fun colors.
So the history here is quite interesting, actually. So back here we have a 1911 Buick, which is really cool. I mean, you see some of the details here, like a bonnet over the top, right?
Yeah.
It's a little rusty. It's all wooden spoke, which is so interesting. Or an 1896 Benton Harbor. It's been restored beautifully. I love the pinstriping on that. 2 headlights, which is very interesting.
It is one of the oldest intact automobiles built in the United States.
They've got a beautiful big tea roaster by Monogram. That's kind of neat. Actually, this one has some slicks on the back. It looks like you can haul groceries in this guy in style.
It almost kind of looks like a little go-kart kind of situation.
Now, this guy, I really love it. It looks like it's just primer over the top, and he was like, all right, good enough. So it's a 1927 Ford.
Found in Arizona and then restored. The first guy who owned it chopped it a little bit up, and then the second guy restored it. But it's got a plaque on the front that says, "What do you mean, when am I gonna paint it?" This is the road map exhibit, and it's basically looks like it's got all sorts of different like parts of America all over it with some roads along the road, like you're on a road trip.
I love that they kind of kept the like faux Art Deco sort of idea going throughout here. And they have just some beautiful cars and hot rods, but I think that I've got 2 favorites. One is going to be this 58 Chevy truck. And what I love about it, not only is this kind of satin finish and they have this beautiful pinstriping, but then they did a gloss orange over it, which is just lovely, right? And it's just so tasteful. This is called a Fleet Side, and they've got this beautiful kind of rocket shape on the side, and of course they slammed it, which is awesome. But they also have this 1931 Buick, and this thing is just lovely. I'm usually not a GM/Buick fan. However, this one I'll make an exception for, and I think this is going to be my #1 automobile at this show. This is lovely, and it's a Faces of Valor, which is really cool. The details on this is incredible, and you know they spent hundreds and hundreds of hours working on this. How wonderful is that?
Now I'm partial to this 1959 Ford. I just really like the colors, I like the shapes. I really just like the way it looks kind of retro and vibey, and it's got a big dance party sign in the front window, so who doesn't love that?
Now they have a small upstairs area that's still an exhibit. And one of the cool things is like you have a 1962 Vespa, but if you look at this guy, you go, oh, that's probably a Vespa too, right? No, 1960 Harley Davidson, cute little scooter, and then a BSA, I've never heard of that company, and then another Harley Davidson. You wouldn't think these little guys are Harley, but they sure are. Really cool little bikes. And honestly, I'd ride one today. So if you're a railhead or a train fan, whatever it might be, this is the spot for you. They have a lot of little model trains in here, and then you can actually push these little pedals and it'll activate different sequences on this train set, which is so neat. Big fan. This is really awesome. Now we're down here on the lower level, and they not only have the little train set, which is kind of cool to check out, but they also have all these beautiful automobiles. One thing that kind of stands out, whether it's the 1928 Pierce Arrow right here or that Studebaker behind us, is how big cars were. I know a lot of folks will say, oh, cars are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm looking at some of these and I'm like, man, that's about the size of our pickup truck. And our truck is built for heavy duty towing.
Right.
You know, if you look at the Cadillac back here, the Cadillac is significantly shorter, I mean, markedly shorter, and overall, I'm sure that the length is a little different, right? But you also had more capability there. You would expect it to be longer.
Right.
That's kind of a fascinating thing, is that cars sort of got, you know, they were pretty big in the, the 50s and 60s. They were even larger in the 30s. So they kind of went down a little bit by a little bit. Look at the 70s, right? And you've got the 80s and 90s and Hondas, right? And now we're kind of ballooning back out. But I'd still say, like, even today's SUVs or crossovers, whatever you want to call them, they're not really SUVs. I mean, you don't even have all-wheel drive on a lot of them, or four-wheel drive. People love them.
Yep.
And they're getting a little bit bigger, but they're not nearly as large as, again, this Pierce Arrow is massive.
I've always been a big fan of like the big utilitarian vehicles. Like, yeah. That's just my jam.
Emma likes big cars and she cannot lie. Speaking of big cars, I was hoping to see more buses down here, but they do have a 1924 white, and you can see 4 rows. It's a really interesting idea to see these, like, okay, this didn't have any glass windows, but it did have a glass windshield, but that windshield opened up. You really don't need air conditioning or heating, I suppose. If you don't have any way to close it in, but
I mean, you got a roof, so.
You do got a roof. That was a luxury back then. All the things we take for granted today. These are quite fascinating though, especially looking at how much clearance they had considering the overall profile of the vehicle. I will say even our Bluebird had a lot of clearance. Now this is a really interesting little exhibit. This is a little diner, and the outside is made of fiberglass. The inside walls, wood, and there's metal componentry here, right? When people say things were made better back then, I think that the materials were certainly made better back then. It's kind of cute, it's small, it was portable, clearly it was donated here, and this was a real working shop, and I love like the ice cream mixer, that's kind of cute.
Yeah, this is called the Flow and Cafe, and these are all things that actually were part of the cafe while it was working, like the dishes and everything.
Even the jukebox, which is kind of cool.
Those are kind of fun.
What do you think about the colors in here? Because they're using a lot of primary colors, right? The yellow, the red, and then they've got splashes of blue and then obviously silver.
It's giving ketchup and mustard.
It's very bold, but with the checkered floors, which I think is, kind of meant to balance. But
Art Deco.
Clearly works. That Art Deco design, though, does also extend to the fact that we have like lines here. For example, we have a round mirror. Even something like the corner of this guy, I mean, you do have sharp lines up here on the menu board, but there's so many curves here, right? They didn't have a lot of harsh lines, and I think that is just, it's a very timeless design, I think. And you saw that, of course, with like the old trains. You see that with a lot of the old like 30s and 40s cars, and they started to get away from that in the 50s, and they sort of started to streamline it.
Right.
Then, of course, by the 70s, we had really aggressive lines. I think in the 2000s, we went to, if you look at like the Ford Taurus, we went to like, there's no sharpness on anything. There's no hard line on that. But I think now we're kind of finding our mix again. And if you look at how this sort of influenced the, even the iPhone, right? Even today, we don't have harsh lines on the displays. And from a functional, technical perspective, videos have 90-degree angles, but you don't have that on the display. So if you zoom in, right, you're cutting off, but yet people love it.
Right.
Kind of an interesting thing, and down to the icons. So I think that the iconography, so to speak, I really think it extends it. I think this is a timeless design, and I think it could clearly come back. There's also little details like this guy, like this little piece here. Maybe you put your menu in there, or it just keeps things from sliding off into the sink. These little details, you don't really see them anymore, but no. I just think they're really kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Welcome to a GM Fishbowl. Now there's actually 3 GM buses, or GMC buses. This one was built in Canada, and it is actually a movie star.
It is. This is the very last Canadian fishbowl bus of its kind, and it serviced Santa Monica from 1987 to 2005.
This bus was in the movie Speed, if you guys have seen that with Keanu Reeves. I think that was 1994 when they made that movie. So, kind of a cool deal. Actually, apparently the director or the producer was really a big bus nerd, which I can relate to. Something I like about this bus is that when these were made, I mean, they had a pretty long service life relative. I mean, the seat's not super comfy, but not terrible, especially compared to today's plastic seating. They're called a fishbowl because they have so much light. Not only did they design these kind of rounded windows, but they also added more windows tinted atop, and then they have a tinted window up front, and you have a big old window out the back. They weren't particularly fast, they were super heavy. It's a lot of big clunking metal, but this one's in fantastic shape. One other interesting design feature in here is the one center strip of light versus now we typically have like corner lights that kind of shoot down. Next to us is the Forrest Gump bus. Yes. It wasn't super prevalent in the movie, but I really love the colors of that. The nice green.
Yeah, and you can actually take a photo waving out the back like Jenny did to Forrest.
Yes. Oh, that was actually closed off. They can rope it off, probably because it's outside right now. But what a beautiful bus that is. And they did have square windows, but something they did because they actually cared about bus design or automotive design back then. And that one's an older version of this. They actually rounded out the rain gutters and the caps on the windows to make it on the inside and the outside, make it seem like they're all rounded, which I think is really kind of cool.
Yeah, makes sense.
And the last bus, the white, green, and yellow bus, you might remember our Henry Ford visit included a very similar bus, which was the Rosa Parks bus. Now that Henry Ford Museum, which apparently they did have that exact bus here, they claim that that is the exact bus that Rosa Parks sat down on, refused to get up and moved to the back. It's a great segue into making sure that people fully understand the significance, not just of that event, but what it meant for civil liberties and humanity, right? Like being God, our nation has such rich history, some of it less fortunate than others, but it had to happen, and it's cool that we have a good reminder. And if you love buses, regardless, it's a great It's a cool thing to see.
Yeah, but that bus is not here right now. That bus is at the Henry Ford Museum in Michigan.
Which we saw, yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, how would you rate this museum?
Well, my expectation was more buses, and there weren't a lot of buses, so kind of disappointing on that front. But overall, not a horrible museum. It was actually kind of fun. I like car museums, so I liked it.
Well, and so Emma's not as big of a bus nerd as I am. I'm a huge bus nerd. And apparently they still have bus events where they invite people to come in and bring their people collect buses. Like, this is not a, it was a little abnormal, right? Kind of weird, right? You have to be kind of weird, but people love to do it. And we totally understand that. We have a bus that we love, Lenny the bus.
Sure do.
So I gotta say, if you were disappointed, I was destroyed. I'm glad that we could come to these ones out of here though.
I think we would not have paid for it if we knew the limitations of the bus collection at this point in time.
Yeah, that would have been, you know, this was the first auto museum I was ever at, right? Absolutely, I think it's awesome.
I think this following Henry Ford was way better.
Is it fair to make that comparison? I don't know. Like, but we just did that, what, 6 months ago?
Yeah.
Or so?
Not even.
Not even, yeah. So, yeah, we're a little spoiled, and that's a, you know, that's a pretty nice thing to be, I'd say. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.
Bye, guys.
Bye.